Have you ever wondered why, despite being more connected and doing more things, the exhaustion never seems to go away? Perhaps you're feeling this way right now, worn out, overwhelmed, but unable to pinpoint exactly where all this fatigue is coming from. It's not just a simple physical tiredness, like the one you feel after a long day of work or intense exercise. It's a deep, invisible exhaustion that accumulates over time. A mental, emotional, and even spiritual burnout that gradually sets in until we reach a point where we feel we have no energy left to deal with anything. Yet at the same time, we can't quite figure out what's draining us. The truth is that this feeling of burnout has become more common in people's lives, and the reasons for it go far beyond just lack of rest or too much work. In reality, there are subtler forces that consume us, and many of them are linked to the frantic pace of modern life and the pressure to always be on top, always ready for the next challenge, the next big achievement. Today's society demands more from us than ever before. We are in a period of unprecedented acceleration, where we are constantly bombarded by information, demands, and expectations that seem endless. Every minute a new email arrives, a WhatsApp message pops up, a post on social media reminds us that we have to do better and that we can't fall behind. This is not even considering external pressures from work, family, friends, or even from ourselves. However, it's not just the number of tasks that overwhelms us, it's also the nature of the tasks we are performing. What should be a balanced and healthy life often turns into a whirlwind of obligations, where there is no room to breathe. We live in an age where external demands are infinite, but the time to process them, to take care of ourselves, to rest, seems to be getting shorter. The amount of stimuli we are exposed to daily, from social media to work demands and even at home, is creating an environment of hyperstimulation that drains not only our bodies but especially our minds. Our brains, which have evolved over thousands of years to respond efficiently to simple, natural stimuli, now find themselves overwhelmed by a flood of information that they were simply not designed to process so quickly. Every notification we receive, every pending task, every comparison on social media adds to the pressure and stress, and our brain reacts to this with silent fatigue. We are in a constant state of alert, as if we were in a war where the battle never ends and the mind never gets a break. The response our brain gives to this ongoing stress is a sense of mental exhaustion, which builds up day after day until we reach a point where we feel constantly tired, even when we try to rest. But what few people realize is that this constant fatigue doesn't just come from external demands. It also results from something much deeper, what we call lack of personal boundaries. We live in a culture that teaches us from an early age that we must always be available, that we must do as much as possible, that we must be the best at everything we do. This creates a cycle of self-sabotage, where we are constantly trying to meet others' expectations or some standard imposed on us by society. But we forget to ask ourselves, what do I really want? What do I really need? The answer to these questions is often hard to find because we are so used to living for others, to seeking external approval, that we lose sight of our own essence. And when this happens, our bodies and minds begin to signal this imbalance more and more intensely until burnout becomes inevitable. The problem is that, many times, we don't realize we are losing ourselves. We live in a constant race against time and other people's lives, without noticing that, by trying to keep up with the frenetic pace imposed on us, we are moving further away from what truly matters. Time, which should be our ally, becomes an unforgiving enemy. We want to handle everything, be everywhere at once, be the best at work and relationships in our personal life. But this is simply impossible. There is no way to be perfect all the time. There is no way to please everyone at once. And the price for trying to do all this is extremely high. The loss of mental, emotional, and physical energy, and the feeling that we are never doing enough. And you know what's even more ironic? Even with all this information and all the ways to connect with the world, we've never been more disconnected from ourselves. The excess of stimuli pulls us away from our essence, from our true identity. We are constantly distracted by so many external things that we no longer hear our inner voice. And this disconnection is the primary cause of the exhaustion many people experience. It's not the work itself, nor the amount of tasks we perform, but the lack of a true connection with ourselves that, little by little, drains our energy. This is where the key to breaking this cycle lies. The need to stop. Yes, you read that right. Stop. In a world that demands constant movement, that teaches us to run, to do, to produce nonstop, the act of stopping may seem like a rebellion. But that's exactly where the secret lies. Rest isn't just a physical pause. It's not just about sleeping more hours or taking a weekend off. True rest is when the mind is also allowed to rest. It's when we can, for a moment, unplug from external pressures and reconnect with our inner selves, with what truly matters to us. By stopping, we are not giving up on our responsibilities or retreating from the world. We are, in fact, giving ourselves the opportunity to recharge our internal batteries so that we can return to the world with more clarity, more balance, and more purpose. But how do we do that in such a fast-paced world? How do we slow down when time seems always against us? The answer lies in small daily gestures. The first thing we need to do is learn to listen to our bodies and our minds. When you feel overwhelmed, tired, low on energy, take a break. Breathe deeply. Allow yourself to do nothing for a few minutes. Disconnect from social media, close your eyes, and just be. This may seem simple, but it has immense power. When we allow ourselves to stop every now and then, we begin to restore our mental and emotional energy. Instead of living on autopilot, we can become more present, more conscious, more peaceful. And by doing so, we are not just allowing ourselves to rest, but also giving ourselves the opportunity to gain a clearer vision of what we really want and need in life. In addition, it is crucial that we learn to set boundaries. The lack of boundaries is one of the leading causes of burnout. Learning to say no, learning to prioritize what truly matters, and, above all, understanding that we don't need to please everyone or do everything we are asked to do is an essential skill for preserving our mental and emotional health. We can't control everything around us, but we can control how we react to it. And often, that means accepting that we need time for ourselves, to care for ourselves, to listen to ourselves. Self-compassion, accepting our limitations, and understanding that it's okay to take time off to rest are key steps to avoid burnout. When we learn to slow down and set healthy boundaries, we begin to realize that burnout doesn't come from an overload of tasks or lack of time. It comes from an imbalance between what we do and who we are. Burnout is not the end, but a sign that something needs to be adjusted. And the first adjustment must be made within ourselves. We need to learn to care for our mental, emotional, and physical health in an integrated way, not allowing external demands to overwhelm us to the point of losing ourselves along the way. Only when we start to look inside ourselves and understand what we truly need can we truly give our best to the world around us. Finally, remember that burnout is not a final destination, but a warning. When you feel like you're reaching your limit, stop and reflect. Ask yourself what truly matters to you. What are you prioritizing? What are you neglecting? What is draining you? And what is replenishing you? When you begin asking these questions, you start to understand what needs to change, and real change begins. It's not about working harder, being more productive, or meeting others' expectations. It's about finding balance between what you do and who you are. And that's where true recovery happens, when you find harmony between your inner world and the world around you. Because, in the end, burnout is not your destination. It's simply a signal that it's time to take a step back, breathe deeply,